Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the official podcast of NintendoEverything.com. We are coming at you every single week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. And what a summer it has been. Pretty much every week we have had some big news, and that continues this week with some Pokemon news. That'll be the first thing we get into this week. There was also a lot of interesting behind-the-scenes Nintendo news that came out of some recent Nintendo meetings. And we have a lot of games to talk about, including a new Square Enix kind of remaster from the golden days of the PSP. So lots to talk about. But first, we are joined by Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, everyone.
We've got Nicolas Shade.
Hey, everyone.
And unfortunately, that is it. Louise is not here today. And someone made a comment on last week's episode. They're like, "Wow, like it hasn't been a full show in a while." And yeah, we're sorry about that. We're we're all over the world, right?
Yeah.
So we all have
rotating.
different time schedules, and we try and coordinate the best we can. But fortunately, because there's 4 of us, we can still do a great show with 3 people. So we've still got a lot to talk about. Let's jump right into the biggest topic of the week, which was we got a surprise Pokemon Direct, or Pokemon Presents as they are calling it now. It's an interesting name, Pokemon Presents, because I always want to say like Pokemon Presents, but they're not like presents like gifts.
Well, I mean, they kind of feel like that sometimes.
Kind of a gift.
Even though they kind of save it for the end, because the first half of every Pokemon Presents lately is always just like, guess what's new in Pokemon Go? It's like, oh, let me guess new Pokemon, like, But
Right.
by the end, it usually feels amazing.
The first half is like when you're opening like the Christmas gifts that like are not going to be exciting.
Yeah, those are all the
And then-
socks and the underwear and stuff.
Right. Then you get to the big one underneath the tree, and
Right.
then you're
It's just
cruising.
sifting through all the mobile games so we can get to the big ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
real games.
I guess I'm not surprised that we got a Pokemon Direct, because at this point I feel like Nintendo has talked about most of their other fall games, and this was kind of the big question mark that we just hadn't seen too much of since it was revealed back in, I want to say February or March.
Around
we had
there,
the reveal
yeah.
for Scarlet and Violet. Yeah. So we got this big Pokemon kind of blowout presentation, and it started off with some things about Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Cafe Remix, just some smaller news tidbits. But then we did get about 10 minutes of gameplay, really, for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and they revealed a lot about these games. We got a really good look at the region, the Paldea region. They did confirm that it is going to be totally open world. You can even, and this was the most exciting thing for me, is that you can go through the gyms in a non-linear order now. So you can choose which order you want to tackle the games world in, which is very different for them.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I have some issues with that, but we can get to that later.
As I say, you sound skeptical.
Yeah, there's one big caveat to that they didn't really clarify, but
Yeah.
that was posted on their website, which kind of sours it a little.
Okay, all right. Well, we will get to that. But yeah, we also got close looks at the legendary Pokemon, which there's also some questions about them, because they're rideable Pokemon, and they transform into both motorcycles and like a flying mode. So you actually use the legendary Pokemon to traverse around the world. So that was another big reveal. And then I guess a lot of it was just kind of just showing off just the world and the graphics, and we got to look at the big gimmick for this game, which is, oh, I'm totally gonna butcher it. Terastilizing. Am I saying that correctly?
I believe it was Terastilized. Terastilized was the...
Terastilized.
Yeah.
There we go. That sounds better. So as a whole, I'm curious. I mean, obviously there was a lot of details packed into that, but let's start with you, Nicholas, since you seem not so sure about the direction that they're going with this one.
I mean, for my on my perspective is I'm just kind of I don't have strong negative opinions about this, but I also don't have strong positive ones, at least when it came to the presentation. It felt very by the books in terms of what they were showing off. Like, here's the gimmick, here's some new Pokemon, here's like a brief look at some of the characters and places in the region. It's fine. People that are really excited for these games are probably more excited by the presentation than I am, and that's fine. It just felt kind of iffy to me, in terms of it didn't sell me on it, essentially. I guess when going back to what I was saying about the gyms, what they had talked about is that even though you can do the gyms in any order, based on the website and also previous leaks that have been on the ball in terms of everything revealed, but mostly the website, they mentioned that the gyms basically did not scale in levels, even if you went to like the last one first. I think the specific wording is something along the lines of like you can challenge yourself and go to stronger ones first, which implies that there isn't much scaling, which I feel kind of defeats the purpose of giving you the option of doing them in any order. Like, yeah, you can challenge yourself for some of them, and do some of the harder ones first, which is fair, and that is, that's good. But then you also leave yourself having to do the, like, early gyms later, at which point those are a complete joke if they're not scaled level-wise. So it seems kind of backwards.
I totally see what you mean. I mean, I guess in my head I'm like, well, we've seen this a ton lately. Like, that was kind of what Breath of the Wild did, even. You could go straight and try and take on Ganondorf from the start if you wanted to. And then, you could go back and do other things in the game world. So I think that whole, like, kind of just open-ended structure can work. But yeah, no, I do understand your concern about the level scaling.
I mean, even in Breath of the Wild, when you beat a Divine Beast, the world scaled around it. Like, yeah, granted, you could do the final boss first, but that would be the equivalent here of, like, going to the League first. Like, the sort of, I guess, gym equivalents, if you want to try and directly compare Breath of the Wild to Pokemon, would be the Divine Beasts. And those did scale. So, like, I'm really glad this is something they're implementing, and hopefully they can refine this in future entries. I'm just not super happy with the initial direction this seems to be going in.
Yeah, no, and I think that's understandable. I mean, it's different, to be sure, and they're making a lot of big promises. Personally, I fall on the end of the spectrum where I'm pretty excited for this. Like, it seems to me that a lot of the changes they're making, like, people have been asking for open world Pokemon for a long time. People have been asking for something that looks like, this game seems like they're finally putting, like, the attention to detail into the world and into the visuals, at a higher level than they've ever done before. And I'm also, it just seems like there's gonna be a lot to do. They said there's 3 different, like, story, like, tracks for you to follow, and I'm really curious to see how that will play out, because we really only know what one of them is, being the gyms. That was all they really talked about in the direct, but I'm sure there's a lot more going on. Dennis, what about you? How are you feeling about these games now that we've finally gotten a chance to see more of them?
Yeah, I thought the trailers were great. We got a lot of information out of this, and it definitely looks much better than the first trailer did. I'm not saying it was a better trailer overall, but just visually anyways. I just feel like there was a lot of polish that's been done since the last trailer, and but I can definitely see where the concerns and stuff come from, especially in particular with the level scaling. I don't think it bothers me as much as it has been everybody else, but those concerns are absolutely valid. Because it does, Nicholas is absolutely right, where it does absolutely defeat really the purpose of having that open world nature and taking them in any order, because in a way it still keeps that linearity, because you are naturally probably just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 8, versus like, oh, let me do 1 and then 4 and then 2 and then 6, depending on where you are at that point in time. So as much as I would love to explore, because with big open world games like this, I love exploring. I think the environment, having a fantastic environment is what keeps me immersed, more so than a story or even truly the gameplay, because I'm someone who just loves to explore. If you just give me a nice, beautiful open world, I will get lost in that world. And next thing you know, 20, 30, 40 hours will pass by, even though I've accomplished absolutely nothing. So,
Right, right.
uh, but yeah, it, you know, having that sense of reward when you're exploring is also incredibly important. And, when you have those inevitable, I don't want to call them restrictions, but when you do have those almost um, that padding set in place, it doesn't really feel as user focused. It still feels like it's influenced by the developer's game design and intention of how they want you to play, but in the guise of giving you this open world of like, look, now you don't have to, you know, go through a black screen really quick to enter a new town, or you have to, or
Hmm.
whatever. It's just a matter of, now you can move anywhere without a loading screen, but, the game is still effectively the same, even though you do have that option, but you won't accomplish much, unless you've really over leveled one Pokemon. But that's not even a thing anymore, anyways, because XP share has always been on now for the last couple of generations. So every single one of your Pokemon is gonna level up with you. So you don't really have
Right.
one that's particularly overpowered. But yeah, overall though, I think it looks fantastic. I'm super excited for it. This is the Pokemon game I've wanted for a long time, especially since Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon before it were big disappointments to me. And don't even get me started on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon; those were absolutely pointless. So, and then Let's Go wasn't even that special. I felt. I think it didn't that too much influence from Pokemon Go. It kind of
Right. Well, they
took
were
away.
going for a different audience with that
Yeah,
one,
for sure.
really. You know. But yeah, no, I think I'm with you. I think a lot of the concerns that the diehard fans have are totally valid, and I definitely understand where they're coming from. But for me personally, when what I've been wanting from the Pokemon games has just been a big world that I can just truly get immersed in. Something closer to something. It's gonna sound bad, but like when you're playing a Pokemon game, like they feel just very. I'm having a hard time finding the right words, but I've always wanted a
Constrained?
Pokemon game that feels like more than a Pokemon game. You get what I'm saying? Like I want a
Oh.
Yeah.
Pokemon game that feels on the scale of some of these other big RPGs, and I feel like maybe it was due to just their how they originated as these smaller handheld games. But yeah, like even with Sword and Shield, it felt like we were kind of taking a half step towards these games being a full RPG on the scale of something much bigger, because you can do more on a handheld now, right? So yeah, so for me, just seeing the scope of what they were trying to build here had me really excited, being like, wow, like this is what a modern day Pokemon game can really look like. And it's the first time I've been excited for a Pokemon game in quite some time, personally.
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic, and and it almost feels like a breath of fresh air too, because everything about it feels new. Never mind just the fact that it is a new direction for Game Freak, but even the art style is a little different, right? It doesn't have that typical Pokemon look. It seems like it's tweaked a little bit more, and I love the new art direction. All the Pokemon we've seen so far look really, really great, and all the character designs as well from everyone that's been revealed so far look fantastic. I mean, everything about it just feels so fresh, and it's colorful and it's vibrant. And yeah, this new region looks really, really, really great. And I don't know if you guys have seen the map illustration, but it's a beautiful map. Beautiful map.
Yeah, Pokemon region maps are always great.
Yeah.
They always
Yeah,
look fantastic.
Yeah. So now I'm curious. So like I want to talk a little bit about the new gameplay mechanic that they showed off, the Terastilizing. how do you guys think? Do you guys think that's going to have a big effect on the game as a whole? Because to me, it seems like something that's going to like be, offer up a lot of potential for people who are really focused on like, I want to have very specific builds for all my Pokemon. I want to have, like go out and seek all these very specific like variants that can make these specific transformations. Because I don't know if I've mentioned this already in this episode, but with this mechanic, you can basically like shift your Pokemon and change them into a totally different class. So your fire Pokemon can become a water type Pokemon or something like that, So I feel like there's a lot of potential there for people who are really hardcore about like wanting to have very specific lineups. I want to see like how deep it can really go,
Yeah, I think from a competitive standpoint, it's definitely going to have a major impact, just because the mind games you're able to play with an actual like human opponent, in terms of like, hey, I'm throwing out this Pokemon that is weak to this, but it might also potentially switch to like any other type that suddenly is strong against the move it would have been weak to. It creates a lot more mind games, I would think. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops competitively. From like a casual story playthrough, I have the mechanic's fine. It's at its core, it's a power up where the move that you change your type, and then all the moves of that new type are increased. So it's it's a power up, but the whole idea of there being mind games you can play by changing your type to something unexpected doesn't work as well in like an AI battle perspective, because there's not really a need to be like trying to outplay an AI, since they usually aren't. They're not making decisions on the same level that a competitive player would. So I feel like it's going to not have. It's going to shine mostly in competitive play. In like casual playthroughs, I think it's mostly just going to be, hey, I get a fun power up for like this battle, and my Pokemon's going to be able to hit a little bit harder, which is it's fine. I think it's interesting that the power up itself doesn't. You have to like manually renew it. The website mentioned that once you've used the Terastilization, anyway, once you've done the magic thing, you either have to go back to a Pokemon Center, or you have to find a random like power source in the wild to be able to like regenerate your energy to use it again. So it's not something you can just use every battle, which is that's
well, that makes
interesting.
sense.
Yeah,
I mean that makes sense, because otherwise, like, what's the point in even having the various types of Pokemon, right? Because you could just change it to whatever you want at any time and then win every battle easily. So yeah, there has to be some type of a balance there. No, that makes sense, and I agree with what you're saying about how it might affect competitive play versus. I mean, I would not proclaim myself to be an expert. I don't want to speak for all the hardcore Pokemon fans out there, but I feel like this mechanic would give them a lot of room to play around with for sure. Whereas, yeah, I think casual players like myself, for example, are mostly just interested in just exploring the world and just the experience as a whole. So,
yeah. I think the hats are weird. Personally, they're kind of fun, but also, man, they're weird.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy for them myself.
Wait, I must have totally missed this. Are you talking about like hats on like the player characters, or hats on the Pokemon?
When you sterilize the Pokemon and they get all shiny and sparkly, they also get these giant hats that represent the type. So like your fire type would get a giant chandelier, your mold type gets like a giant diamond. And
I don't know how I missed that. I'm looking at it right now. There's a lot. It
looks very out of place.
It's like they're a chandelier hanging from like an invisible ceiling or something.
Last generation, the gimmick was everything gets big. Now it's they get sparkly and get huge hats.
Yeah.
Right, it's like just when you think they've like run out of different things to do with the Pokemon, they're like, no, we'll just make them turn into, pieces of jewelry. Sure, why not? Yeah. All right, well, do you guys have any closing thoughts about this game? I'm not sure if I'm going to pick it up on day one, because I generally don't do that with Pokemon games, but it does look really good.
Yeah, this is probably going to be. I never ended up picking up Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but this is probably going to be a game that I consider getting, but like one of the first Pokemon games I don't actually pick up day one because I still have my doubts and I would like to see more reviews. Otherwise, I think it's random tangent. I think it's funny that the red legendary has those like tires, and yet it still runs on 4 feet when running around in the overworld. I'm not entirely sure what the design decision was there, but sure, why not?
I think it probably came down to, well, they can't both use their wheels. They have to be different, you know.
But then why
Something
give
like
it
that.
two
Something to
tires?
justify.
Yeah,
You're
anyway.
asking the questions that haunt me day and night. So
That's what I do best.
For me personally, I think it's super exciting. I will be picking this up day one. This is the most excited I've been for a Pokemon game in a long time, really. And but this new mechanic of terastilizing is interesting. I do think it's just a glorified way of visualizing stab moves, so like same type attack bonuses, and just kind of making a mechanic out of it. It's still really cool because you have more influence on it, because you can just be like, all right, no, now I really want to, like, you know, overpower some of these moves. So it kind of rests in between visualizing stab type moves while being in between like Z moves and Mega Evolutions, which I've missed for forever, because I thought Mega Evolutions were probably the best gimmick they've had in a long time. And in terms of competitive play, like we were talking about earlier, like it changed everything, honestly. Like Mega Evolutions were like this really cool thing of like, you can only do it once per battle, just like this, you know, and you know, it was a make or break situation and could change the tide of a battle. And this has that sort of similar mechanic as well. And I love that, of having, you know, this, you know, like what we were saying with, you know, when you're facing a human opponent versus an AI opponent, you know, that that not being that predictable with it, and not be just that uncertainty of like what's going to come next. You know, your heart's pounding. And in terms of competitive play, not only is it exciting to you know, participate in that, but it's great to watch. Like X and Y was the last time I really spent a lot of time watching competitive play Pokemon. And so yeah, it just excites me seeing all of this, and I can see myself really investing a lot of time not only into the game, but really getting back into the competitive scene because of all of this. So obviously that still all remains to be seen, but
Right.
but yeah, no, I mean, I'm just super excited for everything. Do I still have my doubts? Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, it's because with Game Freak, it's always, you know, one step forward, two steps back, unfortunately. But this seems like a proper, you know, could it be better? Yes, but this seems like finally we're getting a proper leap into the next generation of Pokemon
Yes.
versus this half step. Like, oh man, you guys could have done so much more, and you guys played it safe once again. You know, it's like, oh well, maybe
A
next
much bigger
generation.
step in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well, yeah. So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, those are coming out November 18th. So still got a couple months, but once they're out, I'm sure we will have a lot more to say about them. In the meantime, we got some other news from the back offices of Nintendo this week. That's never really the most exciting thing to like present to you, but like, you know, Nintendo, they have their big investor, you know, financial reports and meetings and things like that, and not exciting on paper, but usually when you actually look closer into it, there are interesting details to kind of unpack there. So the big thing, at least in my mind, is that now I don't know about you guys, but you walk into a store around here and it's been very hard to find Switch consoles, and really just any consoles lately. It's improved a little bit, but because of the chip shortage, you know, there just haven't been on as many of the store shelves. But Nintendo is saying that they are expecting to be able to up that, like have more consoles on store shelves soon. Still not to the level that they want, but they're hoping to make more of them. But some folks are saying that because, you know, internally Nintendo is not making the amount of consoles that they want, that it's very unlikely that there's going to be any new Nintendo hardware. So I think that's pretty big, because, you know, there's been a big question mark for a while over, I mean, there have been rumors since the Switch came out of whether, you know, we're going to get new Switch hardware or not, and, you know, if Nintendo still sees themselves as recovering from this chip shortage and they're still not meeting demands for their base model Switch, I can see them having a hard time releasing a new model.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're perfectly on point with that. It'd be kind of silly to be releasing a brand new model or even a sequel like system when there's still pretty widespread semiconductor shortages. I mean, we had like a real live test with the PS5 and Xbox Series S and like God only knows how hard the PS5 has been to find for, well, like ever since its launch. So
Yeah.
I think it's very, it makes sense that we probably won't get anything super soon. The fact that they have a positive outlook that those shortages will start getting resolved it's nice. It's always nice that these issues are going to get fixed, hopefully rather sooner rather than later. And it does bring up the question of when are they going to end up announcing new hardware, because the Switch has been in production for 5 years, and you kind of have to wonder how long they're going to ride out this train.
Yeah, I mean, they keep saying like every other year we're halfway through the Switch's life cycle, so who knows? Maybe they'll be saying that for the next 10 years, and then we'll just always be on the Switch.
Yeah. I
This
think
is our
it's...
last console.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine? But yeah, no, I think it's exciting to see the chip shortages and supply chain issues are being resolved little by little. I mean, we knew it was going to be resolved at some point, but it was a matter of when. But it seems like this year is when we start to see things clean up. I want to use Steam Deck as an example where actually they were finally able to pretty much double production. So now everyone that was in, let's just say Q4 of their reservations are now moving up to Q3, and then everyone that was in 2023 now has been bumped up to 2022. So basically everyone that's pre-ordered a Steam Deck who still hasn't gotten theirs will be getting theirs this year, which is exciting. So if they can do that with a Steam Deck and Valve being this gigantic company, I think Nintendo will definitely be able to do that. But yeah, to meet those sales goals, is still gonna be tough. Just because I mean, we're talking about a global market that is not only interested in the Switch, which is still very much a high demand console, but you also just have to be mindful that even though some people are going to say okay, well, we're out of the COVID phase, we're still in the COVID phase, but regardless of where you think we are in terms of COVID, people are still very much affected by it, and so I don't think you're still going to have to play it safe and reserve some optimism for how much you're really going to sell for holiday season, this year, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing's clear. Nintendo has still been selling a lot of games. That also, with this recent big call that they put out, they shared their sales numbers for some of their bigger games recently, and we got to see how well some of their releases have stacked up against each other. And so Mario Strikers Battle League, which got a pretty mixed review, I'd say, in terms of the broader industry, has sold about 2 million units. That came out just a month or two ago, so that could also be a factor. But yeah, that one's at about 2 million units, which is pretty low, I feel like, for a Mario game. Like, even considering just when it came out, it just did not probably hit the way that they had hoped. But Kirby and the Forgotten Land sold about 4.5 million units, which makes it on track to soon surpass Kirby's Dream Land, I believe, to become the top-selling Kirby game.
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic
game. Yeah, I mean, it is like, it's an amazing Nintendo 3D platformer, and it's an amazing Kirby game, and hopefully it's going to usher that franchise into just a new era of 3D platforming, because we really don't get a lot of Nintendo 3D platformers outside of Mario, so the fact that that one did really well is a huge deal for fans of that genre.
I think one thing that was interesting in terms of the sales figures is how when they put out their list of million sellers, they don't put out every single million seller on the platform. It's usually just those that are, more notable. They've either had some kind of sales record, or the ones that have sold specifically over 1 million in the last quarter, not just since launch. And so I think it's interesting that on this list they featured all of the Pokemon games except for Legends Arceus. So I'm not entirely sure what that means.
Because that one sold pretty well.
Yeah, I
thought that one sold pretty well.
It sold close to Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, I think somewhere around 13 or 14 million units when we last saw the figures. But the fact that they're not featuring it here makes me kind of wonder if it had a bit of a slump compared to the other games. I hope not, but I thought it was a little peculiar.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, especially because they did do some of those other like Pokemon spin-off games like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which came out a while ago. So yeah, that is strange. Yeah, and the Xenoblade games weren't anywhere on that list, which is also interesting. I know those games don't sell nearly as much, but it's weird that they wouldn't even mention it considering Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is out now.
I can sort of understand that. I think 2 sold just over 2 million. It didn't reach 3, and Definitive Edition sold about 1.5 was the last information we had on it. So, I mean, they're smaller titles. That much I'm not too surprised by. I don't think if they were to include every single million seller, it would definitely be far too long of a list.
It'd just be like all their games, pretty much.
Well, yeah, true. Because I was gonna say, like, I feel like shouldn't we? I feel like it did reach it. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes be on this list technically?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I honestly, I totally forgot that game even came out. Feels like a lifetime ago. I don't know how much
the original sold either as like a baseline, but you're correct. That is a bit of an odd omission.
Yeah.
Well, there's no predicting Nintendo really, but but yeah, it helps to get a little bit of behind the scenes look. Let's shift over to talking about some games, because that's why we're all here. That's why we all have a Switch in the first place.
Yep, we love the game.
I just like looking at the menu screen. I don't know about you guys.
That's true.
Wishing that there were things. Yeah, that's all I do is I just sit there and I cry.
Staring wistfully, hoping for folders.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, plus we all know, the Switch menu has that really catchy theme song that plays in the background.
That's right.
When you're in the menu, so. Oh gosh. Side note though, I really wish they had put in that's like Nintendo's signature thing, or like one of them is like having just like this really awesome like quirky music at like every level of their systems, and the Switch is just silent, and it still bothers me to this day.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, you can tell they took a minimalism sort of approach with it, but it almost went a little too minimal, right? Where it's just like everything just feels so shallow when you turn it on. Obviously when you get into the games, they're incredible games, they're exciting games, but man, when you go back to that home screen, it's like, oh god. I need something new to play now.
They kind of traded personality for efficiency.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the games. So this one is not going to come as a big surprise to people who live on the internet. Square Enix has officially revealed Tactics Ogre Reborn, which is a remake of the 2010 game Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, which apparently is also a remake of a game with the Tactics Ogre name. I'm not familiar with this franchise at all, but people have always been raving about them as like really amazing strategy games, really good RPGs with a pretty hard-hitting story. Or have either of you guys played Tactics Ogre in some way, shape, or form?
I have not, owing to the fact that there's been like almost no Tactics Ogre. I think the series is technically called Ogre Battle. I'm not 100% sure about that, but there have been almost no games in the series released within the last decade, so I have not gotten to experience it, no. But I'm really excited that this is out now. That this is coming out, to be precise, because this seems like it will be a good first foray into the series and hopefully somewhat of a revival.
Yeah. I'm not super familiar with it myself because the only game I really knew about was the one on the PSP, and I never had a PSP. I was DS all the way, baby, back then. So, but yeah, anytime like and again, this is a Square Enix example of them just like being on a roll, like bringing out like ports of these older RPGs and also just experimenting a lot more lately. I really love to see it because it's one of those games that I've always kind of like, it's been like tucked way deep in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, people always mention that's a really good strategy game, but I don't really have a way to play it, so then I just kind of forget about it,
Yeah. I think it's made by the same, the original game was made by the same team that made Final Fantasy Tactics, and people usually praise both of those as being some of the best strategy RPGs out there.
That's right.
So I'm definitely excited to try those out as someone that has never played a Tactics Ogre game or a Final Fantasy Tactics game.
Dennis, you're a pretty strategic person, I would say. How are you? Where's your hype at for Tactics Ogre Reborn?
It looks really good. I'm in the same like boat as Nicholas though, where I have not played any of them, and it's saying something too because I used to download anything and everything that was on the PSP, right? Like the PSP was my system back in the day. Really, I had a DS as well, but it was mainly just a Pokemon machine. But yeah, it was, but that one just completely just went over my head. Tactics Ogre, and. But this new one looks really good, and I'm interested in it. In terms of, strategy RPGs, similar to this, Final Fantasy Tactics was and is still absolutely a fantastic game. So I didn't realize it was made by the same team, so that's really like exciting news to hear that because I now that gives me really high hopes for this. It definitely is. You have to applaud Square Enix, right? Because they're taking all of these old games and really breathing new life into them. Now, granted,
Yeah.
They've had a couple of misses also, right? With like, I don't really like what they've been doing with a lot of these, like the last couple Final Fantasy remasters, like 7, 8, 9, where it was just kind of like, oh well, here it is, and then what they have with Chrono Cross, like it's just, that's not what we're looking for,
Or
right?
their multiplayer endeavors as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then but what they've done now with what they're doing with Tactics Ogre, and what they've done with Live Alive, and what they will be doing with Dragon Quest, what they're remaking in the HD 2D engine. I mean, come on. I mean that all looks phenomenal to me. So.
Yeah. I do kind of have, speaking of HD 2D though, that's probably my one issue I had with this reveal, is that I don't really like the look of the game that much. It feels like that kind of thing you always see when when people, like companies release collections of old, sprite-based games where everything just looks smoothed over, and I kind of hate it.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the conversations about this game this past week, was people who played the original game were kind of comparing the new kind of Square Enix says like their HD visuals, and yeah, they kind of smoothed out the pixel art. Everything looks very different. I don't necessarily think it looks bad, but I guess I can understand if you have nostalgia for that specific art style. I can see where folks might be a little disappointed.
I mean, I just came off of playing Live Alive, so when it comes to like my sprite-based RPGs, I have higher standards, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, HD 2D or bust, right?
Yeah, I mean, geez, HD 2D is like probably one of the best things Square Enix has done in
absolutely
God knows how many years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be playing this one anytime soon, to be frank. I like strategy games, but they take a lot out of me, like brain-wise. Like, I feel like when I'm like focusing hard on a strategy RPG, it's like my brain just totally changes its way of thinking. Like,
yeah,
I'll be like taking the train and like looking around and being like, oh, there's higher terrain, like stat numbers probably,
how many tiles? It's
not really. It's a real problem. But yeah, they're kind of exhausting experiences for me sometimes, so I have to take them in moderation.
I'm sorry, that's just like the funniest thing I've heard.
I didn't mean to break you, Dennis. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just imagining you on a train, just actually going up to viewing the terrain as tiles. It's just the funniest thing to me.
Doesn't happen that often, but yeah. But I'm also still playing Fire Emblem Awakening, so again, that should give you some level of metric.
Yeah, just imagining all the attendants passing by, like, "Sir, are you okay?" Like, I'm sorry, it's tiles.
Guys, it's not your turn to move. What are you doing?
Right. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh man, no, that's good. This is a high quality podcast material that people tune in for.
Oh my god. But
by the way, I was looking at our podcast analytics lately, and shout out to our listeners in Sweden. I don't know how you found out about us, but we appreciate
awesome.
you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Talk.
They make up like 15% of our listeners. So thank you, Sweden.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk. Yeah, it's but I absolutely agree with you about strategy RPGs where, like, I love them and I've played so many of them, but they've gotten to a point for me now where I can only consume them one at a time, right? Because not only do they ask a lot of you, but they do train you because there's a lot of thinking that goes on. I mean, I'm playing, I'm still getting through Digimon Survive at the moment for review. And that it's taking a toll on me, right? Especially with so many great RPGs at the moment between Digimon Survive, Live Alive, and of course the recently released Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So there's a lot of RPGs happening there, a lot of strategy, a lot of numbers, So yeah, it's definitely a one at a time type deal for sure.
Yeah, okay, and I know we're totally on a tangent now, but you mentioned Digimon Survive, and I've heard from folks who are playing that game is mostly a visual novel, really, and that the strategy, like the actual combat scenarios, are a pretty small chunk of that game. Is that true?
Yeah, so I'm getting big vibes of, I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but there's a game that came out forever ago on the Vita called Utawareru Mono. It's a really long Japanese name, never got localized. Well, I mean, the game got
it's
localized.
It's a household name.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. But the title itself never got translated to English, so it's always been that word. Those games are brilliant, but they are they do skew more towards being heavily visual novel, but then when you actually get the gameplay portions, they are strategy RPGs. It very much feels like that. You will be in a visual novel portion of that game for a very long time before you get to the actual battle portion. And then once you're done with that, again, you'll be in the visual novel portion for a very long time, rinse and repeat. So, but yeah, if you're used to games like that, like Utawareru Mono, which is like the first thing that comes to mind, then yeah, I mean, you still enjoy it, but yeah, it is very very skewed towards the VN part of it.
Yeah, I was curious. We've been getting a lot of these strategy RPGs lately, actually, it feels like. So, and we're getting Front Mission later this year too. We're getting some Front Mission remakes, so that's exciting. But let's talk more Square Enix. We found out more about one of their other upcoming games this week, Harvestella, which I think a bunch of us are very excited for. I think this game just looks amazing, pretty much at every level. And now we have a better sense of just details about the town and the world. So, so for those who aren't familiar, this game was shown off in a recent Nintendo Direct, and it is a kind of Harvest Moon style game, I think, for lack of a better word. You got your farming, your fishing, you've got some combat scenarios, dungeons, pretty much the whole shebang for folks who are used to this. And you move through the different seasons as you would, but there's also a 5th season, Quietus, where all your crops wither and die, and it's dangerous, and etc. Which is actually a pretty cool concept. We talked about it a little bit when the game came out. But now we have gotten a better look at the town itself, seeing all the blooming flowers, and getting a better sense for like what you can do in the town. It just looks great. I'm really excited about this game. There's different jobs, so we were already aware of like you can be like a fighter or a mage, but they also showed off there's like a new class that they call Skylancer, which I guess is a you're using a spear, and it's like a I wish there's social links, there's all kinds of stuff. So this game is at the top of my radar right now for this fall, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The game looks fantastic. I anyone who knows me knows I love like art styles and art directions, so like immediately it appealed to me. It looks like a mix of a couple of games that I really loved on 3DS, games like Stella Glow. There was a game called, I'm trying to remember, it was like Seventh Dragon 3 Code, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. That
I just picked up that game because I knew it was going to be lost to the eShop soon.
Yeah.
So
it's a really good game. I liked that game a lot. I kind of like, I spent a lot of hours just, that game took me by surprise 'cause I'd never heard of it before, and it just came out of nowhere, and I reviewed it forever ago, and I couldn't put it down. It was like really, really great. But it reminds me a little bit of those two games mixed with, of course, you know, you get Rune Factory elements there as well, but then you kind of have this visual direction of, you know, something, I get like a lot of Oninaki vibes from it. And, but yeah, the game just looks, it looks brilliant.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting like Tales vibes, like not 100%, but just the way that the characters look and the way the world looks kind of reminded me of like a Tales game.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I really want to know like how this game became a Switch exclusive because it looks really ambitious. It feels like it's going to be a great fit for the platform, but I want to know how it came to be that way. You know.
I mean, Square's had a lot of support for Switch recently. I mean, I guess even for like the last several years, but recently you've had so many games revealed coming to the platform. Even just, you know, Tactics Ogre, which we literally just mentioned. There's been a lot of support. If you ignore like the really big high profile stuff like FF16 and the Final Fantasy VII remake, like Switch has been getting a lot of Square Enix content.
It's true, which really makes me wonder with all these rumors about how Square Enix is, and these are just rumors, but you know, after we covered, they sold off a lot of their Western studios in pursuit of NFTs and cryptocurrency right as that market crashed, which is just Shakespeare right there. There have been rumors that they're also trying to sell off more of their Japanese properties and studios so that they can be bought by Sony. And I wonder what would happen. Like if they were bought by Sony, I feel like the support would end. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen personally.
Yeah.
But
it's really hard to predict acquisitions. I mean, I don't think the two biggest ones that happened, I mean, I guess, yeah, even three with the Square Enix ones, like none of them, the Microsoft Activision one, the PlayStation Bungie one, and the Square Enix, like all the Eidos stuff, I don't think any of them were rumored or leaked at all. So
no,
it's one of those things where like I don't know how much faith to put in these rumors exactly, because we've had such high profile ones that have, you know, we haven't heard a peep of until they actually were announced.
No, that's true. I think the other thing that just amazes me about this release is like really you're totally right that like Square Enix has been great in supporting the Switch, but it's been a while since we've really gotten a brand new IP from them, I feel like. And all these games that we've been talking about, like Tactics Ogre, Live Alive, we got the Chrono Cross remaster, like these are all like remasters of games that, you know, we haven't seen in a long time. But I can't remember the last time we got a big budget. Maybe I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, big budget, not really. We had there were a few smaller Square Enix titles last year. Like I think Voice of Cards was one of them.
Right.
There was
Okay,
another
fair enough.
one. There was another one that was like some kind of really minimalistic dungeon crawler, I think. I don't remember what its name was. But you're right that this looks bigger budget.
Yeah, no, there was Voice of Cards, and then gosh, I can't remember the other one. It was like Dungeon Encounters, I think maybe. Does that ringing a bell?
That sounds
anyone?
right, actually. That title sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. They've been great with these smaller projects, but I can't remember the last time. It seems like it could have the potential to become a moderately big IP for them if it sells well.
I think so. It seems like this will be a timed exclusive, and I say that just because, like, I mean, like you were saying, Nick, it looks very ambitious, and I just don't know. Even though it looks fantastic, and I do think it can run on the Switch, I don't think it'll be reaching its full potential on the Switch. And the reason why I also think it'll be a timed exclusive is because I'm looking at the screenshots now, and a lot of these screenshots are actually in 1440p, which we know the Switch doesn't do. And there's actually a couple screenshots here that are done in a 4K resolution, and there's no, like...
Was it? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like the 4K resolution, like even though I'm like blowing them up at the moment, there's still no distortion and there's no um like aliasing issues at all. So it seems like they're pretty smooth unless these are PC screenshots, so maybe we might see a PC
Switch
port in
2
the future.
confirmed.
Yeah.
But
Harvestella reveals Switch 2.
true.
4K
Harvestella
graphics.
launch title. But no, I think you're right
Oh, man.
in that these are probably PC screenshots because I think it was announced on Steam as well.
Oh, okay, no wonder.
So I think it's kind of a similar situation
there
to
you
what
go.
they did with Octopath Traveler, where they have both it's a Switch console exclusive, but then they also put it on PC.
That's right. Yeah.
So
You are correct. Thank you for being the fact checker of the group, Nicholas. We're all just getting so hyped over this Switch exclusive, and you're like, actually,
over this
it's
Switch
not.
2 leak.
yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's switch gears. We still got a few more games to talk about here, and this one is relevant in particular in the wake of all the Pokemon stuff. So there's a game coming out soon to the Switch. It's called Nexomon. Now, I'm sure you can all guess this is a totally original idea, not inspired by any existing Nintendo franchises whatsoever.
I knew it. It's a Digimon ripoff.
That's right. That's right.
You called it. But yeah, so Nexomon is a short series. I think there's 2 games in it now. They're just these Pokemon-like RPGs, and I don't know too much about them in particular. Like, they seem to be adopting more of like the old school style. I guess you can call it that now, right? Where Pokemon is mostly shifted to these more traditional kind of like third person, over the shoulder style RPGs. The Nexomon games still seem to be going for that top down classic Pokemon 2D style. So maybe meeting that need for folks who are still looking for that. But it does bring up an interesting point about how we're getting a lot of these like Pokemon style games, between these and Temtem coming out in September. And there were some other ones too. Like if you look on Steam, there's just a ton of these types of games coming from these smaller studios mostly.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, honestly, just because Pokemon, and I think we've talked about this in other podcasts before, where like Pokemon, really is just a juggernaut of its own and kind of has a monopoly, right? It owns the monster catching genre, and to be fair, it defined it. It made it into a mainstream, global phenomenon that is very much a part of still pop culture to this day, I would say. So but it's exciting to have other options, so long as they don't label it as, because we've talked about this before, right, where it's like it's a problem right away when you say, oh, it's the next Pokemon killer. Right? It's
right.
Let's stop
Big shoes to
marketing it.
fill.
Yeah, big shoes. Stop marketing it that way, because I already know I'm going to be let down right away. No matter how much I enjoy it, you're not going to be the next Pokemon killer. Just stop it. Nexomon doesn't do that at all. Instead, it's just like we just offer a very old school Pokemon experience that is different, with a different art style, a different way of doing things. And I played a little bit of the first one on mobile, because these were originally mobile games. And I thought it was fine, but then I bought it on PC, and that's where I spent a lot of time with it. But then when Nexomon Extinction came out on the Switch, oh man, oh my god, I clicked with it much more than the first, because it felt like more of a pure Pokemon experience to me, and just how robust it was, and the humor is fantastic. Like I think that's a big thing that you miss in Pokemon games, or really just a lot of games in general, is humor. Right, and the game is surprisingly funny, and Nexomon Extinction just really scratches that itch for if you're a Pokemon fan that really wants to go back to the old school style of playing, so that traditional turn-based, RPG, while going through grass to find new Nexomon, and you are getting badges. They don't really call them badges, they call them something else. I'm trying to remember what. And then I think the Pokeballs that you use are called, I can't remember. I think they're either called traps or prisms. I don't think they're called prisms. I think I'm getting confused now with World of Final Fantasy. I think they were prisms in World of Final Fantasy. But
I thought you said prisons for a second. Oh no! Darker take for a monster catching game.
No, definitely not. No, definitely not prisons. No. Like, what are you doing out here in the wild? You coming with me? You're getting arrested.
Yeah, no, I guess it's worth mentioning that both the Nexomon games have been on the Switch for a while, but they're coming now in like a bundled collection.
Yes,
I think physically as well. So, yeah, no, and I'm with you. Like these games in general, they don't do enough that's different for me to like feel compelled to go play most of them. But I do really like the art style of these games, and for what used to be mobile games, they feel fairly ambitious and
they're actually surprisingly high quality, and honestly, they're really well priced. Also, I think the problem with a lot of quote unquote Pokemon, either clones or killers, is that they get a little too ahead of themselves, and they want to price themselves almost, if not full MSRP, close to it, so like $40, right? But the first one's only $10 on the Switch, and then the second one is only $20 on the Switch. Mind you, these games go on sale all the time. Those are just base prices, right? So you can get them for absolute steals. I think I got the first one on PC for 99 cents. I mean, you couldn't spend a better dollar. It was incredible.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it. All right, cool. Well, just wanted to touch on those since, Pokemon is big right now, and there's another option for folks who, if you don't like the new direction, at least you have your options, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon, just how many of these exist.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of like, like we were just kind of talking about with the life sim genre. Like, we've seen so many, I would really credit Stardew Valley for making that genre really popular again. But yeah, between those like Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon, Rune Factory, Animal Crossing, and then you got all the smaller games like My Time at Portia. One of the ones that just got released this week was Hako Life, which looks very similar to Animal Crossing. So like
Disney Dreamlight Valley is taking a similar direction.
Disney Dreamlight Valley. Yep, there you
Nick
go.
and I are very excited for that. That's right. Absolutely. Campaign it, Nick.
Yep. I will be the forerunner for that movement. Well, we'll see. I haven't played it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
I can't wait for that podcast the week after that game comes out, and we're just disappointed. we're just upset.
It is.
I hate. It
is a Game Loft game, so I'm trying to keep my expectations in check.
Yeah.
All right, one more game I want to talk about, and this is exciting for folks who like playing those big budget games on the Switch. So Sherlock Holmes, you know him, you love him. He's been solving crimes for hundreds of years now. Books, movies, video games. The video games in particular have been kind of I wouldn't say like total hidden gem status, but they're a little bit under the radar. They're made by Frogwares. And they are based out of Ukraine. They've been going through a hard time with the situation right now, but they've been making these great games. And this week they announced that they are working on a remake of Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, which came out in 2006 and was one of their bigger games with the character. Kind of kicked off their modern day franchise of Sherlock Holmes games. And it looks great, and it's coming to Switch in 2023. They did run a Kickstarter campaign to garner a little bit more support, and they pretty much blew past that. So, yeah, it looks like Switch is getting a big budget Sherlock Holmes game next year.
Yeah. Worth noting that the Kickstarter is still has 26 days to go for anyone that's interested. So, there you go.
Yes. Yeah, I think Frogwares, they make some great games. I have played some of their other Sherlock Holmes games. I played Crimes and Punishments back in the Xbox days, and I played The Devil's Daughter, which was on PS4, I think was where I played that one. And yeah, they're great. They build really amazing worlds that you can play through, I think, both first and third person. And the underlying mysteries I've always found are really interesting, and they're definitely like the type of game worlds that I have been able to kind of lose myself in for 20 hours or so. They're great games.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with these, But I mean, from a presentation standpoint, they seem pretty good, and like, it's Sherlock Holmes. I like Sherlock Holmes. I imagine a lot of other people do, and if these games are, they're known to be pretty good, this very well might be something I check out when it comes out.
Yeah, Dennis, you said you played some of these older Sherlock Holmes games too, correct?
Yeah, I remember playing, I believe, Crimes and Punishment on the 360. I played a little bit of that, and it's interesting because I remember when I kind of went into it blind. I'd never played a Sherlock Holmes game prior to that, and I didn't know what to expect. My only real exposure to a Sherlock Holmes game was sort of like mobile stuff, or just like smaller, cheaper stuff. So typically they were either hidden object games or point and click games, right? So I was surprised when I started playing Crimes and Punishment on 360, where you actually had these like 3D environments. You were walking around like a AAA game, like you would, in any normal game like that. So I was surprised, and you would just do what Sherlock Holmes would do, unsurprisingly, which is, investigate stuff and check evidence and whatnot, and it was just awesome going through all of these different environments. And I was like, wow, this is actually like a really polished, big legitimate Sherlock Holmes game. This is fantastic. And then I remember, I can't remember if I played it or watched it just because it was so long ago, but The Devil's Daughter, looking at that and looking at how incredible that is. And I always see screenshots on Steam that I pass by. I haven't played it, of Chapter 1, I believe it's called. Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, and that looks, just from the screenshots, alone, just look fantastic. So it's kind of incredible, like, how much these games have evolved, and really how big they are, because they will surprise you. Like, if you're a fan of, just mysteries and thrillers and stuff like that, I mean, these games will absolutely surprise you. Like, it's you don't expect, a Sherlock Holmes game, of all things, despite that name being so globally known, you wouldn't expect them to be as polished and robust as they are. It's really surprising, but like pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, I love seeing that, despite like the challenges going on in the world, the studio is still able to make these amazing games. And yeah, as always, the question with these games that look very visually impressive from the outset is, how's it going to run on Switch? But Frogwares, I think, has a pretty good track record for the most part of making games that are fairly well optimized. So we'll see. But yeah, this is definitely one that I want to see more of, see it in action, run it on the Switch. All right, well, that about wraps up our news for the week. Thank you to everyone who has listened to us up until this point. We got one more thing we like to close out every episode with, and that is, what have we all been playing lately? Nicholas, I think I already know your answer, so let's start with you. How's your playthrough of Xenoblade 3 been going?
Oh, it's going great. I'm so happy with the game. I got into it a little bit late. I started Tuesday, but I've been binging it ever since, and it's everything I hoped it would be. Louise has a great video on the channel talking about it. I'm very excited for you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm very excited for you, because it's been, like, the game at the top of your mind for a long time, and if you had been disappointed in it, I would have been really sad for you, honestly.
Yeah, no, thankfully, it's great. It's super interesting, because it's definitely... I think there were a lot of complaints with Xenoblade 2 about tutorials not being fleshed out, and I think they almost went in an opposite direction here, where the tutorials are really solid, but I feel like the whole tutorial section ends up being a little long. You end up being kind of wrapped up in always learning new mechanics for quite a while, quite a few areas. I think it's good that they're introduced slowly, but it does end up making it feel a little slow at first. But honestly, that's like my only complaint with it. Everything else has been just aces. The story is excellent. The characters are probably the strongest cast of any Xenoblade game. Everything in terms of like cutscenes, voice acting, especially cutscenes. Like, my god, the cutscenes are so good. All the action-based cutscenes are great.
They look amazing.
Voice acting is like super good and like really helps characterize everyone, like the entire party. Everyone's far deeper than I expected them to be, which is great. The combat's super fun. It takes some getting used to, but once you actually unlock all the mechanics and you start understanding when to switch characters on the fly, it gets super, super satisfying. Oh, it's so much fun.
So how far in would you say you are, like roughly at this point?
So I did look up how many chapters there were in total. There are 7, and I just started the 4th. I don't think that's necessarily a good estimate time-wise, because some of the chapters are far shorter or longer than others. But I just got... I'd say I'm maybe a third of the way through. That seems about right. I'm level 30-ish.
You've really been trucking through.
Oh, I have been binging to an unreasonable degree.
I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah. But I mean, it's been fun.
Great.
I've had reasons to do so because the game just keeps pulling you in. But yeah, I got my first major like story plot twist literally just before I hopped on to record the podcast. So, you know, it's been fun.
So you're reeling right now.
Sorry, say that again?
That's great to hear. I was just saying, you're like probably still reeling. You're like thinking about the game in the back of your mind this whole episode.
The entire time.
I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
All right. So what would you say since you've made it pretty far in? If you had to give one or two like beginner tips, you know, like folks who are still trying to get a handle on the game, what would you say?
Definitely pay attention to the tutorials. The game is complex, but it also tries really hard to teach you everything, even if it does so slowly. So don't like just ignore them and skip through them. Really pay attention to everything that the game is trying to tell you. And I mean, other than that, you know, just have fun. Try out everything. Try out all the characters. Don't just stick to one. Then enjoy yourself.
All right, good advice. Yeah, you know, like everyone's mom always says, you know, always read the instructions. It's always the most important part.
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah. Dennis, what about you? What have you been playing lately?
So I'm gonna change it up a bit because I actually, believe it or not, I actually have been playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 also. But
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was gonna wait out on it, but my girlfriend surprised me with it for an early birthday present. So
That's nice.
So I've been playing a lot of that, and pretty much everything Nicolas has said has been spot on. I think, you know, this is an incredible cast. The voice acting is really, really great, especially compared to 2, where I felt like the voice acting just felt very unenthused in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, it wasn't necessarily bad, but it was just like everyone just sounded tired all the time.
The voice acting was rough. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Right.
can you blame them? It's a big world they're just trucking
yeah,
across.
but it's just like, oh, Pyra, no, you know, that's what it sounded like all the time to me. So I don't know, but no, absolutely, everything Nicolas said was spot on. Where, you know, this game is incredible. It is deep. It is rich. The world is beautiful. Whether you're playing in handheld or TV mode, it looks fantastic. But yeah, I don't want to repeat everything Nicolas said, but yeah, everything he said was spot on. If you haven't picked it up yet and you love RPGs, do yourself a favor and pick it up. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, you don't have to play the first 2.
No,
You probably should, because they're also excellent, but
Yes.
if you're just going to pick up one, this is a fine one to pick up.
Yes, absolutely.
Good to know. Good to know.
But what I've mainly been playing is As Dusk Falls. I've actually been playing that. I actually just beat that last night on Xbox. And this game took me by surprise because when they first announced it, I believe at E3, or what would have been E3, it was kind of received negatively because when you look at the trailer, the trailer was not very good, admittedly, and even I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'm not interested in this at all. But then it came out on Game Pass, and I was like, why not? Because I started hearing rumblings of like, look, if you thought this game didn't look good, that trailer didn't do it any favors. This story is incredible.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? All right, whatever. I'm interested because I love choose your own adventure games, right? So I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll try it. Whatever, it's on Game Pass. It doesn't cost me anything, right? So let me just download it, give it a try. Guys, let me tell you something. This is one of the best stories I've ever experienced in a very long time. Like, it took me by surprise. The art style was not for me at first. I was like, what, this does look like a slideshow presentation, at least through the trailer. But then when you start playing it, no, the environments are in 3D, but yeah, the assets or the character models are pretty much these 2D sort of drawn images. It's really weird to have that sort of conflict of direction, but it works, interestingly. And yeah, it is a fantastic game. I mean, wow, the amount of routes too, when you see the tree of all the routes you can go, it is incredibly intricate, and it's a game that I love talking to people about choose your own adventure games because it's interesting how they go through their own story. Everyone can kind of conduct their own narrative, right? So with As Dusk Falls, I mean, there's just a multitude of ways and directions in which your story can go. And it is, yeah, it's just a fantastic story. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's hard to explain, but I feel like if I explain it, I wouldn't do it justice, but I'll try to simplify it, where it's basically there's these brothers that they need money and they rob the wrong person and they end up um, holding a hotel hostage as they're trying to run away. And yeah, and it all
Oh,
just sort of
interesting.
blows up from there. It's this sort of crime thriller, and it is, yeah, it is just a fantastic, fantastic story. I couldn't stop playing it. And yeah,
See, based on what I had seen about the trailers, which you mentioned were not good at representing the game, that wasn't what I thought the game was about at all. I mean, I figured it was some kind of like family crime drama, but at no point watching like the trailer was I like, oh, they're holding a hotel hostage. Like that's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, it's kind of
but like
crazy.
that's a much more interesting like hook to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in that it is, you do have that family crime drama in it, but yeah, it expands itself into all these different um, ways, and it really grips you. It's really, really gripping. So, for anyone who's listening to this, including you guys, like if you have Xbox Game Pass, it's available on both Xbox and PC. Do yourself a favor, download it if you love choose your own adventure games. It is fantastic. I rolled credits on it last night. The real credits, because you do get a couple from chapter to chapter, um, but yeah, it is wow. Yeah, it's definitely my personal surprise hit of 2022, I think.
All right. Well, that is some high praise. Yeah, I very much do enjoy those choice-driven games. And actually, I have been playing kind of along similar lines. Life is Strange 2. It was a couple weeks ago. Louise mentioned he was playing Life is Strange True Colors, and I was like, you know what? I never got around to Life is Strange 2, which is like the actual like. I think people forget about it a lot. I think people remember the first game and people remember this recent game, but I feel like Life is Strange 2 kind of slipped under the radar for a lot of people. That was back when they were still doing the episodic release structure,
Hmm.
and I personally I was kind of over that at the time, so I was like, oh, well, I'll just wait for all the episodes to come out, and then I never played it. But the kind of the impetus for me to play it was I finally got my Steam Deck. It came just about a week or so ago, and it opened up like I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I picked up this game at a Steam sale like forever ago, and so I have just been playing through it, and it's been amazing. And that game is not on Switch either, which kind of blows my mind. Because the other Life is Strange games, True Colors is already on there, and I think
Hmm.
they're still working on bringing. They like announced the remastered collection for the Switch, and
Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't
sure if
I'm
it's
not sure
out
if
yet,
those
actually.
games are actually
Yeah.
out yet. Um, but yeah, I it's if you liked the first Life is Strange game, the sequel is really good. It definitely approaches some really kind of dark themes, and I'd say it's a pretty like tense game, in a different way than the first game, where I feel like the story here is a bit bigger in scope. Like there are more implications. Like for example, like with the first Life is Strange game, the story was very much centered around like this one town and how the choices you were making were affecting the people in it, right? Well, the second game is much more of like a road trip style adventure, and so you're I don't want to spoil it too much, but your characters are basically something happens and they find themselves on like this like cross country road trip, and so the choices that you're making seem to have much bigger implications, and that was really exciting for me to kind of see this world fleshed out, and it plays great on the Steam Deck too.
That's interesting. I've never really heard much about Life is Strange 2, like you said. It definitely seemed like a maybe not a black sheep, but one that's definitely discussed less than the other ones. Out of curiosity, is there any direct kind of story connection between this one and the original, or is it more like, hey, this is a similar themes and the same framework?
It takes place in the same universe, but at least as far I'm only on chapter 3 right now. I haven't seen a ton of like major connections. there was one part where when they're on the road trip, they pass by Arcadia Bay, and they like mention something and be like, oh, like, you know, something happened there a while ago or whatever. But that's pretty much all I've seen so far.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really good. If you guys have a convenient way to play it, I'd recommend it. It's and it's so cool playing it on a handheld, man. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen much about the Steam Deck or anything, but it's making me look at my Switch and kind of like shun it off in the corner sometimes because I mean, I know that's blasphemy to say, but like, man, like, I'm able to like crank up this game to like ultra settings, you know, like that would run on like a high-end PC basically. Granted, it's running at like the Switch's resolution, but the thing just runs without a hitch. It looks beautiful. I'm able to play it for like 3 hours or so on a charge, which is perfect for me. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I'm sad I had to, I did have it pre-ordered like when the pre-orders first went up, and yeah, I was set for Q1 actually when they first started going up, but unfortunately I had to, due to, you know, things going on at the time, I unfortunately had to cancel my pre-order for the Steam Deck. But yeah, but I've heard nothing but great things about it, and it looks incredible. But I've been hearing a lot of statements actually echo what you've said, Nick, where people have just been kind of looking at their Switch like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna go back to it. Yeah.
It's hard, man, because I love my Switch still. I just picked it up this week to play some of the Mario Kart DLC. You know, like it's great for those types of games, and especially if you have the OLED model, like the screen on that one still just kind of blows away the Steam Deck. But yeah, like in terms of anything third party, I'm like, well, why would I, if I'm gonna pay full price for this game, no matter what, why would I pay the same price for a version that's not gonna run as well just to play it on my Switch?
Yeah, because
I know.
You're just gimping yourself at that point, right? So it's, yeah, you know, I feel the same way, and that's how I am when I look at never mind the Steam Deck, but that's how it's been basically since the Switch launched, where, you know, I look at a third-party game and I go, okay, I want to get this on Switch, but is that the best decision? Like, never mind the fact that, like, yes, I do have the option of portability, which is great, but will this be the best investment, and will I get more of an enjoyment out of it if I bought it on Xbox or PlayStation or PC instead? Because sometimes, like, you know, I can make I can forgive if a game is 30 frames instead of 60 frames, depending on the game. It's a game-by-game basis. But I can forgive that. But sometimes there's too many sacrifices made where it's just like, what is this? This isn't the same game anymore. It looks like it's beat to hell. You know, and it runs poor, and it's like, why did you even bother bringing this to begin with? I'm looking at you, Outer Worlds. I'm looking at you. You know.
Well, and yeah, for me, you know, before the Steam Deck, the question was really, when it was in this case, it was like, how badly do I want to have this game in a portable environment? And usually, I would be willing to make the sacrifices to play some of those bigger games, maybe, like, because for me, like, you know, especially back when the Switch first came out when I was in college, I was moving around a lot and I wasn't always at home, and so it was really nice to have some of these bigger games on the go. Well, now the question is really, if a game is coming out on the Switch, you know, and all the other consoles and also PC, I'm like, okay, well, if I want to play it portably, I'm just going to get the Steam Deck version because it just seems like the best option. But
yeah, and it reminds me of what you said earlier too, that I think is a question that comes up in an embarrassing amount, which is sad to say, but it's whenever we look at a game, and we looked at this just for Harvestella, which is a console exclusive to Switch, and we still ask this question, where it's like, you know, how well is it going to run, right? And this is a ridiculous question that comes up so many times that never comes up really anywhere else. I think it's one of those questions that you know, it takes us by surprise when the game does come out. It's like, okay, it might perform a little bit better on one console than the other. But with Switch is always the same question, how well will it run? And I'm tired of asking that question, quite frankly. So with the Steam Deck, you do have that you know, that peace of mind of just like, you know, you will have more or less a game that runs really, really well because of those beefed up specs.
And just the other element that I just want to touch on real quick, you know, the other thing that I've been thinking about lately is, you know, with the 3DS and the Wii U eShops closing, there's not necessarily this guarantee that the Switch games that we're buying are going to carry forward with us, right? I mean, there is the chance that Nintendo releases their next console in a couple years that is backwards compatible with all the Switch games and plays them at higher resolution and higher frame rate or whatever. But there's also the chance that, this never happens, but Nintendo maybe hadn't learned from their mistakes, and they just do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And at least I have some assurance. My Steam library, Steam has been around for, over 20 years at this point, and people have been carrying these games forward with them, and so I'm like, all right, well, if I buy a AAA game on here, there's a pretty high chance. Obviously anything can happen, but they have the best track record out of all of the major gaming platforms of letting you keep your stuff and carry it forward with you. So all right, well, that was hopefully I didn't scare off all of our Nintendo viewers with my Steam Deck love, but but I'm definitely gonna still be playing a lot of these big AAA Nintendo games on the Switch in the future. So don't worry, this will still be a Nintendo podcast. But thank you as always for everyone for tuning in. This has been episode 20 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. And if you like what we do, please spread the word. Give our show a shout out on social media. Tell your friends. And if you have anything you want to see on the show, any feedback for us, please leave us a comment down on YouTube, or you can drop us a line at our show email, which is in the show notes. Beyond that, thank you so much. We will be back at you next week with more that is new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.